This 911 Strong podcast is brought to you by our partners at the Police Credit Union of California.
As a financial institution founded by law enforcement for law enforcement and their families over 65 years ago, they have the experience and understanding to help you with all your financial needs,
including exclusive products designed specifically for law enforcement professionals. To become a member today, visit thepolicecu.org. That's the police, the letter C, and the letter U.org.
Or call 800-222-1391 and tell them you heard about them from the 911 Strong podcast. Hey, friends, welcome to the latest episode of the 911 Strong podcast. Kristen, what do you think of our next guest, Brandi Harper of the firm of Castillo and Harper?
I'm excited to have her on. Like we're going to talk about, we had heard her at Tamron's event for law enforcement, and it's all about social media and the do's and don'ts and what we can do and what we can't do, and like it or love it, hate it, despise it. It's not going anywhere. It's only going to continue. It's a permanent thing in our lives. So it's good that we're getting somebody that has all the information we could ever need.
That's right. Stay tuned. The next episode of the 911 Strong podcast with Brandi Harper, who's going to tell us what to do on social media and not do, starts right now.
Station to all units.
Prepare to copy.
You're listening to the 911 Strong podcast.
Don't act like I never told you.
With Aram and Kristen, bringing you stimulating discussion.
No, I like the sound of that.
An entertaining conversation.
And now, here's Kristen and Aram.
Hey, friends, welcome back to the 911 Strong podcast. With me, as always, is my fearless friend, Kristen.
Hey, guys.
Well, today we have a special guest for you today. Someone that, I don't know, may have some pretty revealing things to say about Kristen's social media, because you all know her social media page is very controversial. With us from the firm of Castillo and Harper is attorney Brandi Harper. Hey, Brandi.
Good morning, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us. We saw you on the stage at the Law Enforcement Social Media Conference following Sheriff Mark Lamb, the American Sheriff. And so it was a big stage. And I'm like, who's Brandi Harper? Why is she sharing the stage with such a polarizing character? Well, you yourself are very polarizing. As soon as we heard you, we're like, we need to have her on our show. So thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me and for saying that. I will definitely send you guys the check after.
Well, we should be paying you, because what you're going to give us today is some free legal advice, we hope. Because the topic of today are the do's and don'ts of social media. And I think a lot of our followers who listen to the show initially followed us because of our social media pages. And they kind of morphed towards becoming audience members of our podcast. But we made a lot of mistakes along the way in our social media journey. And I know you have a little bit of experience defending people and advising people on the do's and don'ts of social media. So this is perfect. You were spot on, because a lot of the things you were talking about on stage were a lot of the growing pains that Kristen and I went through and had to learn the hard way. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is at our jobs, we've gotten spoken to individually about what we can and can't do. So let's jump right into it. What are some of the things that you've experienced as an attorney dealing with social media and cops?
So social media is great. I'm on social media. A lot of agencies have really embraced it, especially right now trying to hire. It's a great tool. And so I have a lot of officers, and especially as the ages of officers have gotten younger and younger, that just really love being on social media. And so we have had a greater amount of cases now that deal with things that are posted, things that are commented on social media. I think probably one of the first things I always hear from my clients when they get their first notice of, you're coming into IA to talk about what you posted, was, I have a First Amendment right. It's my First Amendment right to say whatever I want. After I tell them how cute it is that they think that still exists, I immediately start to, ask them, do you know what your policy says? And I think the first do that I would say is, if you're going to be on social media, is you need to know what your agency's social media policy is. Most agencies, especially here in California, are all about Lexipol. Lexipol has a specific privacy expectations policy. For most agencies, it's like about 1026. Every agency renumbers, so I can't tell you for sure. But if you're on social media, you need to go look at that policy. because it's really going to outline what you can and can't do on social media. And as an officer, yes, you have your First Amendment right, but as soon as you decide that you want to work for your agency, they get to tell you kind of what you get to do and don't do. And
Right.
so you need to be familiar with that policy. And I think not just that policy, but also your information technology use policy. Because I think what beyond just, well, I can post whatever I want, some people are shocked to learn that if they're doing these social media posts while they're at work, that may expose them to having to hand over their phone at some point. And that's scary. I can tell you, nobody wants to hand their phone over to their boss. Generally, there's going to be at least one text message that is not flattering about your boss. So don't do that. So I think the first do is, if you are going to make that step and, be a cop influencer, if you will, then you need to make sure that you know what your policies are.
What about the people that say, well, my page is private. I have a private account and I can share whatever I want. Is that a big misconception?
Yes, actually, yeah. So my second do actually is make sure that you have privacy settings on your page. But with that knowledge, understand that nothing in life is private. I have at least half of my cases are cases in which somebody is in trouble for something they posted on a private page, a private group chat. There are several people that got in trouble for posting commentary on a very large retired law enforcement Facebook group chat. So, you can have privacy settings, but the reality is, the limitation is somebody can always get into that group, and there's always going to be at least one person in there that is not as cool as you think they are. I'm sorry. Can you give me 1 second? I have a 6-year-old here.
No, that's fine.
Yeah,
She wants to
that's
join
fine.
the show too. She'll have to sign the waiver.
She wants to say hi. She likes social media too.
Hey,
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. All right. Go, Brookie. You gotta go. You opened it? Okay. Go out and play with it. Thank you.
she's so cute.
She's been trying to open my collector Darkwing Duck toy for a while, and she
Right,
finally.
and she's been trying to get on our show too for a long
she
time.
has. She wants to be that. Both my daughters, they're 6 and 9. When they grow up, they're going to be influencers. So
Yeah.
Probably going to happen.
that's the age now.
Yeah.
It used to be like, oh, I want to be a princess. Now I want to be an influencer. So
Right. That's a good segue into cops wanting to be influencers. What's up with that? I mean, who would have ever thought we would have full-time police officers endorsing products, going on social media, influencing things, and then dancing on TikTok? I mean, is that something that you would have ever thought would happen today?
No, absolutely not. And I think most of the sergeants, lieutenants, captains, and chiefs never thought that either. So, they really have no idea what to do with this. So, I think TikTok is really scary for so many because nobody has any idea what is going on. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. We all have
That's
kids.
awesome.
It's okay.
So I think that nobody really thought that was going to happen. And, with TikTok, the problem is what makes those videos fun is being in your uniform, showing that you're a police officer doing these silly things. But that in and of itself is a policy violation.
Yes.
And so I think that is another problem that these agencies have. Okay. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
It's okay.
This is great.
No,
We got
no,
people
it's
driving
okay.
in their cars right now, taking their kids to school who can totally relate.
Yes, and this is all of our lives.
Yes.
So mom lawyer life right here in
Yeah.
action. So I think that has become a problem, and just taking that a step further, I think a problem is that a lot of these agencies, your IA sergeants, your chiefs, they have no idea what social media is. It's maybe something that their kids are on. And so because of that, they don't know how to deal with, they see a post, they don't know, oh, well, that's the latest TikTok trend. And so you're just doing something someone else is doing. Instead, it's, oh my goodness, you're doing something crazy. And now that's what our agency is known for. Some agencies that don't understand it, I think do get the help of, hey, we suddenly have 10,000 views and now everybody loves us in the community. When that's the case, they like it. But when it's, oh, nobody likes this and people think it's horrible, they do not like it.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's kind of subjective, right? I mean, you have some chiefs, young progressive chiefs that are totally on board because they get social media, they get the value of it. And we talked about Mark Lamb over Pinal County, Arizona. He gets it, he embraces it, but he's also the face of social media for his agency. Do you think that a lot of that has to do with maybe unfamiliarity of social media? Because I think there's a tremendous benefit. Obviously, it's helped Sheriff Lamb in recruiting big time.
Mhm.
In today's day and age where we have less and less people wanting to become cops and a greater need for cops and we just can't find them, do you think social media should be embraced by agencies?
I definitely think so. I think on two ends. One, I think it is a great recruiting tool. Um, I mean, I think everybody would say it's pretty much desperate times trying to find police officers at all. I mean, some of these agencies with their $40,000 bonuses,
Yeah.
I'm ready to go try and figure out if I can get on the treadmill and go. But I think the other thing is we hear a lot about humanizing the badge and just seeing that the police officers get such a bad rap, but they're really people. They're at the park shooting hoops with kids or skateboarding or buying lemonade from lemonade stands. So I think there's so much good that can come from social media that when agencies just completely say no, do not be on there, do not do anything, they're really losing that connection with the community. They're losing that connection with potential officers that would come to their agency.
Mhm.
And I think too, a lot of it is you really have to look at the dynamics of your community. Maybe you go, who's going to coffee with a cop? It's not 20, 25-year-old people in your community. It's, retired folks or, maybe some moms after they drop their kids off. So if you want to start connecting with the younger community that's going to grow up in your community, social media is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about, so, I mean, I think I heard you on stage say that if you have a chief like Sheriff Lamb who totally gets it, embrace it. Are there some agencies that should just stay off?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and I think you kind of know you should know your chief and you should know your command staff, right? If your command staff is walking around with a flip phone, you probably don't want to be on social media because they don't understand any of it.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, and you'll see that in even policing situations, right? Like body cams were the big one. When everybody's going to body cams, where are you going to store this? Oh, it's going to be on the computer, but
Right.
where? Is it going to be in the cloud? What is the cloud? What are you talking about? I mean, not that anyone understands the cloud anyway, but these chiefs really have no idea. So if you have a chief like that, you probably don't want to be on social media. Sometimes, I think this is an area where like police officer associations can really step in and help their agency with explaining, saying, hey, look, you know what, we're not posting crazy memes. We're doing this community event. We want to put it on social media. We want to do shop with a cop and put it on social media. We want to do a Halloween event for the kids of the community. Let's put it on and kind of, baby step them into it to understand. But you're going to have some of those old timers, I don't really see it with the younger chiefs. I see it with the older chiefs that are just absolutely not. No, I don't let my kids go on there. My granddaughter posted something I didn't like, and it is from the devil and we cannot be on it. And if that's your agency, you have to just stay off of it.
You mentioned POA association pages. How does that work? Like, I know the association has the right to use the department name and images, but are they also bound and restricted by department policy?
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing I tell my POAs is, look, the first thing as a POA you want to do is make sure your name is set, whatever. So it's, Smallville Police Officer Association, right? And then you have your own logo because you are not to be using the department logo. You need to be using your own logo. The thing is, as an association, you do have more First Amendment rights in that arena than you do if you're just an individual, because it's all viewed as concerted activity, right? You're doing it on behalf of an association. So you have associational freedoms. So you do have more leeway there. And obviously that's the place where if you want to say my chief is horrible, you can say it there, it's protected. Whereas if you say it on your own page, just as an officer, you can get in trouble for that. And with the POA pages, I like to point out, you want to have it as the POA making these comments, as the association. You don't want, your president there saying this, that, and the other. I'll tell you, I have some groups that really are unhappy with certain people, and they like to talk about that a lot on their pages.
Yes.
And it is protected. And I will give the same advice I give some of my clients, which is, yes, it's legal, but maybe it's not the best idea.
Right.
If you're going to burn a bridge, make sure you don't have to cross it again.
Right.
But
so as an
have more freedom as a POA.
Okay, so it just triggered a thought. So as a POA member,
Right.
I'm covered by my association. If I make disparaging remarks and put hashtag POA, is that a loophole?
That is so creative, but no, that is not a loophole. No, I mean, and let me just say, look, you have to, there's different case law, and it's going to be boring to get into here, but the case law is, if it's a concerted activity, like it's really, hey, we're trying to forward this as a group, that's protected. So even if you individually are saying it, as long as others are agreeing with it, getting into it, yes, it's not just complaining like, my chief is at this, that, or the other, but it's that my chief has poor leadership and it's causing problems for the agency, that would be protected. One of the weird loopholes I will say is if you have other people chime in to your post agreeing with you, of course, I've usually found that to be concerted activity. So, if you're out at 2 a.m. and decide to get on a social media account to post what you really think about your boss, you might want to call your other friends that may be out at 2 a.m. to also chime in, and then we can argue it. That would be better than hashtag POA.
Okay, so we're on the subject of POA, but Kristen's really quiet over there. I know she's thinking of this, but how does this affect the civilian staff at the police department? Are they under the same rules?
Yeah, so civilian staff, if they are guided under the Lexapol policies, they will definitely still fall into this. Sometimes the city rules are going to be a little bit different. So that's what you fall under. I think that the biggest one I would say that most people don't look at, and it affects civilian staff as well, is your information technology use policy. Because if you are, at the agency and you hop on the computer to check your Facebook or your Instagram or whatever, that opens you up to a lot of issues.
Right. And even just clarifying too, even if you're using your own phone, but you use the department Wi-Fi, it doesn't matter because you're using their equipment. Okay.
Correct. And that's the thing that scares people the most, that after usually I give one of these talks, other than just saying like we're all going to retire and move to Iowa, is if you're going to use your phone, just because you're not using their computer, if you're using their Wi-Fi, that is owned by them, you're still under the policy of we can take your stuff. So I try and tell some of my clients, especially the ones I know that are really active on social media or shenanigans, I advise them, hey, as soon as you're going into the station, you turn that Wi-Fi off. Burn your own data. It's okay. Yeah. You can usually get it for free with Verizon if you need to. So, that's the first thing, is using the Wi-Fi, using a hotspot, anything like that. That is their equipment. It's the same as being on their computer.
Right.
What about using your own data and stuff while you're on company time? Let's just say you're not connected to their Wi-Fi, you're not using their computer, you're on your own device using your own data, but you're on company time viewing, just not even posting, but just viewing. Does that subject your social media to company oversight?
So generally on something like that, I would argue that the way that they normally get into your data and into your social media accounts is because you're using their equipment somehow, and that's how you fall under the policy. So I don't necessarily, I would argue they can't get into your phone if it's something like that. However, if you're, let's say, a good example is, let's say you're just really trying to capture a Pokemon on company time. You're not necessarily going to worry about them getting into your phone, but because you're doing that on company time, that's what you're getting in trouble for.
Okay. I have a quick question. So what's the do's and don'ts if you're running like a POA page or the department page? Are you able to block people or delete comments or mute people versus like mine and Aram's like personal public pages?
So basically, if you are running the department page, it is an open page.
Mhm.
And you cannot just willy-nilly be deleting things, taking things off. The POA page is like a semi-public page, so you have some of those same rules. What I would say, and I think the law has kind of started to change on this, is you need to make sure that your pages have a term and use policy on it, right? So look, you can't block and mute people's freedom of speech. That's the whole point. They can get on there, say whatever.
Mhm.
But if you get on and they're using curse words, they're using derogatory terms, you can delete those comments, but you have to make sure that it says right in your terms of use that that's what you're doing. But if they're just, let's say, the perfect example, you're running the police department page and somebody's on there and goes, cops suck, cops are awful, we hate cops, you can't delete it, right? But if they say, F the police with the entire word,
Mhm.
if one of your terms is no foul language, no curse words, whatever, you can
Mhm.
delete that.
Okay.
And those terms of service have to be accessible, right? They've got to be linked onto the page or displayed on the page.
Yes, yes. So, depending on what platform you're using, I tell most of my clients, look, just where your little bio section can be, put it right in there, right up front, so it's not hidden. If it's,
Mhm.
the 17th slide that you have to scroll, for 2 minutes to find, it's kind of hard to argue it's knowable and easy for people to see. And I mean, you're not hiding anything. You want that, so make sure you just put it there.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of, I was around since before social media, so I've seen the evolution of how agencies do it. And I remember hearing about an agency who got sued for violating someone's free speech rights because what the agency did was delete a derogatory comment. It didn't have foul language. It just was not complimentary towards the agency, so they deleted it. And the person who had their comment deleted sued them civilly in court, and the court found them in their favor that because it was a government page run by a government organization, they had the right to that person had the right to make those derogatory comments. And I think that kind of set the tone for agencies to realize, hey, we have to let these public comments stay, whether they're favorable or not. And I think that's what led a lot of agencies to say, hey, we just don't want social media pages anymore. Do you find that that's the case today? People just don't want to hear the negative news.
I would say yes and no. I agree that has been the case law, and that's really what started to have. I saw transition, I think, from the time those cases started to really come out, of agencies just saying, look, we'll post the flyer about the toy drive or this or that, but we're just going to have no comments ever. But I think that, look, there's always going to be the naysayers, right? So if you're just going to not do something because somebody's going to be derogatory, I can assure you they're going to be derogatory some other way. They're going to post it as an editorial. They're going to do it in the comments of the news story. They're going to find a way. So let it be, because what I normally see, honestly, is when you have agencies that are doing a really good job on social media, doing a really good job in the community, and you have those one or two people that come and, say, oh, the police are terrible, they're this, that, and the other, you're going to have 10, 12, 15 people replying to that comment with, these guys are awesome, they're amazing, they're doing so good in the community. You don't even know what you're talking about. And I think that's more helpful. I mean, the reality is that's the dialogue that's going on in society right now. And so let it be on your page and let your community have that discussion, and don't try to muzzle it, because it's happening. And I think you're going to see there's a lot more good comments than bad.
That's a good point. Let your supporters defend you.
Right.
Let it ride. Sit there and see what happens. That's a good do.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for some departments, some chiefs that are just so worried, to have anything negative. I think maybe they just live in a very not reality, because that's what's happening. I mean,
right.
There's derogatory things being said, but the only way to address those derogatory things is let them be said and let's address them. With that being said, do not address them yourself. Do not get on there and say, well, you're saying that because, you're a scumbag and we arrested you 15 times. And, don't do that. That is not your role. But just let that happen because that's what's happening in your community. And,
Right.
the basis, I think, for especially the department social media pages is to have that connection with your community. So have a real connection.
You mentioned that, and I immediately think about a certain agency here in Southern California. It's a beach community that runs a very humorous page, and they call people out. I won't say who they are, but they are a beach agency.
Oh, I know exactly who you're talking about, and
Yes.
it's one of my favorite pages.
It's so
They do a great job of it though, because
Yeah.
it's so funny and it's just, humorous response. And I
Mhm.
think if you're going to respond that way in like a humorous way.
Right.
Don't respond in, well, there's been 15 calls to service and da 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 da.
Yeah.
It's just
Spiteful.
make it fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a very Ryan Reynolds type response.
Yes, yes, it is very much so. And I think that's a great way to do it. I mean, if the reality is you guys have a really hard job and you can't get mad about everything. So just let's have fun with it.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Absolutely. Let's put some memes on this and some music and, let's have fun with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. What was I gonna say? Sorry. I
That's okay.
get scroll moments. But okay, so can you just completely block people if you're running a department page, or no? Is that a no?
Generally, I would say don't block people, but if you have somebody that has and this is going to be in your terms and conditions of your page, right? So if you say, hey, if you have excessive amounts of violations or more than 3 violations, we're going to block you, then I think it's okay to block. If somebody starts following you and you just go, oh, this person's a problem, this is the crazy person that goes to city council, I don't want them on our page, you can't block them. They have to do the violations, right? And then you can block them. But as a general rule, I say try not to block people because it just doesn't, it looks bad, right? And then what happens? You block them, they create a new account. Oh,
Yeah.
you blocked me. And then now they're posting that. And then everybody that's on that site is reposting. And it just becomes a whole issue that you don't need. So try not to. But if you have somebody that's constantly coming on using curse words, if you have, or if you have just one of those like robot accounts that are coming in saying, I can, email this prince and he's going to give you $10 million, or, sign up on this page and we're going to give you, Bitcoins and like scam type things.
The bots,
then block those. But don't just block the person that maybe isn't your biggest fan.
Okay.
So basically, if you're running a department page, treat it like you are an agency, because you're a public agency. So the rules that follow real life need to apply to virtual life as well.
Correct. And look, I will say this too. Oftentimes, you find out, okay, who's running the department pages, right? It is not going to be a supervisor. It's going to be like the person that's been on 2 years that actually understands social media, can do a good job. If you're, don't take it all on yourself to make those decisions. If you're like, okay, I think I need to block this, email your supervisor so that you can, if it comes down to it and there's a lawsuit or they're going to start an IA on you, like, hey, you know what? I made sure that my boss said it was okay. And I explained why. And also if you're running a page, like Cameron's, I think conference is great for this, or any social media, make sure you know what the laws are, what the rules are. A lot of times, I mean, city attorneys are great. They aren't really in this area as much, so they might not know these rules, but, reach out to them if you want, or reach out to your POA attorney. And generally they'll be able to give you some guidance. But at the end of the day, don't think that it all has to fall on you because you're just the newbie that knows social media. Ask a supervisor, get it in writing so that you kind of, cover yourself.
You bring up a good point. There's not enough. I know Tamron has her conference, and I have attended a couple classes that try to instruct officers and the do's and don'ts. But why, with social media being such a prevalent thing, why aren't there enough classes out there to teach officers how to do social media for their agencies?
there's just not enough cool people that know social media that can teach it, I guess.
But
Not everybody can be cool like me, guys.
I was just gonna say, I'm like, no offense. I mean, the Lexipool guy is like, seems like a sweet man, but he's like an older man, and I don't think he would be the one to be like teaching the social media pages. So they're the older ones at the top making all the decisions. They're not going to embrace social media like some of the older chiefs.
you know, it's funny.
And I will say, I mean, I am, I guess the millennial cutoff is different places, but most of them, I was born in 85, so I'm in the millennial. I have, I run our firm our firm Instagram. I have my own Instagram. I'm involved with a bunny rescue. So I have my rescue bunny Instagram page. So, I mean, like, I actually know how to, I'm actually on it. I'm using it. I'm familiar with it. Also, being a POA attorney, I have clients get in trouble for it. But, I think that the reality is, I do a training. I've done like the social media training and kind of do's, don'ts, the laws for officers. And most of the people that come to the class have no idea that any of this exists because nobody's really doing it. And I think that the reality is just, when you go to a training, it's generally a different generation, and that generation doesn't have social media. They don't understand it. So, if they were to do the class would be 5 minutes. It would be, don't have social media.
Yeah.
If you do, please only post pictures of your children, puppies, and that's it. And thanks for coming by. And it's kind of almost like head in the sand type situation where we're just going to pretend it doesn't exist and not teach about it. But that's just not the reality. But I think that is really realistically why there's just not a lot of training on it, is because the people that generally would do the training don't use it, don't understand it, don't know what to do. So how can they go teach it?
Yeah, you bring up Krista, you bring up the guy from Lexipol. His name is Gordon Graham. And years ago, I went to a training class where he spoke, and he said, don't do social media. If you have social media now, delete it. If you're a cop, don't do social media. Well, this is how things go full circle. So our good friend Ryan Tillman, who runs Breaking Barriers United, has a popular podcast as well. His mentor of all people is Gordon Graham, who now fully supports what he does on social media. So I think that's crazy. I think people were resistant to it. And just like all new things, they're unfamiliar and with it, and say it's better just to not have it at all. Yeah. But it's taken over. Everybody's got social media. It's, I think the stat is more people in the world have social media accounts than they do a telephone. So it's become a utility, in my opinion. But Brandi, you bring up a good point. There's not enough people who are familiar with it, especially in your space, people who are paid to advise and give counsel. Well, this is one of those niches that you've kind of developed a specialty in, and it's no wonder why you're being asked to go on stage and speak on it. Do you think that this is a specialty that will become more present as time goes on? And this is just a generational thing, maybe?
I think it's just a generational thing. I mean, our firms, we've been around for 9 years, right? So we're starting to get to that point where, like, people that were the officers we were in IA with all the time are suddenly, supervisors, and we're like, how did this happen? Really, first question. But, people are starting to move up. And so I think, in 10 years, the people that are running the pages right now, because they're the only ones that know how, they're going to be the sergeants and the lieutenants. And they're going to, be able to say, oh yeah, no, we're embracing this. This is what we're doing. I think it's a generational thing for sure. But I mean, I'll tell you, I go into these, I had an IA where I had a client that literally was in IA because he liked a Facebook post. And I'm sitting there with IA investigators and like, well, why did you like it? Why didn't you unlike it? Why didn't you do this or that? I don't know. Ask Mark Zuckerberg. We don't have that option on Facebook, Well, what about these smiley faces and this? And are you talking about emojis? Like what, they have no understanding. Right. And it's like, I'm sitting in an interview, literally trying to explain what's on Facebook, and that's the problem. I think as it's generational, people are going to go, Facebook is now, Meta is going to take over the world, I guess, again, but people are going to start understanding, oh, this is how it works. Right now, I mean, it's way behind the ball. So I think it's a generational thing. I know a few years ago, I had somebody that used their Apple ID on their work phone because they didn't really know what the problem was, but all their personal things that needed to be personal went on their work phone. And I had to have an hour conversation with their boss about how they weren't doing the things that were on their phone at work. It was just that they didn't know that they put the Apple. And so it's, I feel like there's so much explaining that has to happen. And, as far as me, like the trainings I usually do are for POAs or those type of groups. But I think that there needs to be some training. I think the place that's really missing it is training for supervisors and chiefs, so that they at least have a basic understanding of, this isn't just the app that your kids and grandkids are on. This is something that most people in your department are on, and you need to have a basic understanding of what it is.
So if agencies are interested in having training, can they reach out to your firm? Do you offer that on your?
Yeah, absolutely. Just reach out. My email is pretty easy. It's Brandi with an I at castilloharper.com. Or if they reach out to you guys, I definitely would love to do this because for me, I would much rather give people training so we don't have problems than try to explain it in a skelly when, they're looking at days on the beach.
Right. What are some of the, I know you defend officers with social media. What are some of the common, what's the one you see most common that officers get in trouble for?
Oh man, there is so much. I will say, I think, just at the time that we're in, I think, politics is what people get in trouble for the most. And not even so much what their political beliefs are, as much as the back and forth commentary and fights that they engage in. I think that's usually what gets them in trouble. And memes. I think memes are probably maybe the top thing other than politics. And I try to explain to my clients, and when I do the trainings, I tell people, look, it's super funny. You post things and they're really funny. You're going to get fired, but they're super funny. I also laugh at them, but you can't post them. And I try and impress on, just think of if it's offensive, and then look around in the world and know that everybody's offended by everything. So don't post them. There's a lot of very funny cop memes. There's a lot of very funny, something happens and people create memes out of them, and they're great and they're funny. But when you post them, people get offended. And then, oh, well, see, this is what officers do. And that's immediately what your agency is going to get you on. So just beware, like memes generally don't do. Also, if you're making memes based on calls you go on, that's also bad. Don't do that. Also, again, super funny, always funny, very funny. But unless you're ready to really commit to a full-time comedy gig because you're going to get fired, don't post those.
What do you mean? Let's go back to that real quick. Are we talking about using images from scenes or just talking about them?
All of the above. So, I have some agencies, and it's I will tell you, it's never the guys that have been on 20 years because they don't know how to do it. It's, like the guy that's been on a year and a half, or still on probation, that's, goes and, oh my gosh, look how funny this guy is that we arrested, or how silly this looks. And they take the picture and go on, meme generator and come up with a really catchy little caption, and then they post it. You can't do that. That is a no-no. And the problem with that, just to kind of segue a little bit, is I have some clients that say, well, my agency is constantly posting who we arrest, so why can't I post it? Well, generally, sometimes they're posting things they shouldn't post to begin with, number one. But number two, you're not them. You cannot just be out there arresting people, making memes of them. And generally, they don't make memes, right? You take the picture of the DUI and, post it, oh, bad, only bad decisions are made after 3 a.m. or whatever. Or, take their face and put it on a tequila bottle and then post that meme. Like, we can't do that. So I think that's the biggest problem, is just with taking pictures on scenes and then making memes. And not even on an aside, usually they're doing it with their personal phone. They've now taken a picture on their personal phone, so they turn it into a work phone, and now they can take your phone.
Right.
So it all kind of goes together. Other things that, like I said, I had somebody that got in trouble for liking a Facebook post that wasn't was not an offensive post, but later people started fighting in the comments, and that person got in trouble for that.
Hmm.
So some of it's very ridiculous, some of it is not. The good thing about having a personal page is if you post something stupid, I try to follow a lot of my clients, so I will send the immediate text, take that down, take it down now, delete it, burn it. But just because it's funny, it doesn't have to be posted. And I think that's a younger generation situation, is everything they do has to be posted. Like, this is what I'm eating today. This is my beverage. This is how fast I'm going on the freeway. Like, so they feel like they have to post everything. So, at work, they just continue that. And not everything has to be posted.
That's a good point. I think that's a great mantra to have. Not everything needs to be posted, and just slow down. If you have a great idea that you think that everybody's gonna react to and like, take a moment and think about it before you post it, and think about maybe some of the repercussions that may occur from posting it. So that's something that took me a long time. I've been on social media now for like 7 years on a public page. And it took me a long time to realize that, I'm a witty guy, I get these great ideas and I want to post it. Well, maybe take a step back and share it with somebody, share it with Kristen or something. Go, hey, what do you think of this? And get a second pair of eyes on it. And that's kind of been my go-to thing if I have a questionable post.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the same thing for me. I mean, I'm so funny. I'm super funny, but sometimes
you are.
Yeah, thank you. Again, checks in the mail. So I mean, but then sometimes I think like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna post this. It's so funny. And then I'm like, oh no, I'm not. No, because I think it's funny, but not everyone will think it is funny.
Right.
Yeah.
You are a hilarious person. And when we heard you speak in public, and then after speaking to your partner, Casey, before we talked about bringing you on the show, I'm like, I have to attach my censor button, because every other word that you put out there at the social media conference was an F-bomb. And I got to hand it to you. You were pretty mild today.
Yeah, well, my mom might listen to this, so I toned it way down, and I was told I had to be very professional. So I did that, but that is why I don't get asked to speak at some things that are a little bit more professional. But the reality is, half the time I'm using those words, I'm just telling you stories of what my clients have done.
Right, but it's hilarious. I mean, you're so candid, and you're I don't know, you don't hold anything back, and I think that's why you can hold in an audience, because we've been to some presentations where they'll have an attorney speak, and attorneys, I wouldn't say, what's the opposite of dry, but they go out and it's very dry for the hour, and it's just like
they're very
teeth.
Bueller monotone.
Yes, and
they're very much like this is the law. In 1776, America was created, and we had the Constitution. And today, let me tell you about social media law. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
No.
Whereas when you speak, it's like a stand-up comedy act. It's
I
hilarious.
have to tell you, after Tamron's, I had 2 people come up to me and ask if I did a stand-up, or like if I had actual sets or did open mic. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Oh, you'd be great if you did. You're a natural.
But then started thinking about it, I'm like, being a lawyer, much like being an officer, kind of sucks sometimes. So, maybe that'll be my next career. I'll just, if I break one more Chiefs table, I might have to get a new career. So.
Well, we certainly can go on for hours on this subject. Social media, I mean, we probably need to have you back for a part 2. But social media is just one of those things where, even though it's been around for 20, we're going on 20 years now. I'm going back to the MySpace days where search engines were Alta Vista, and, Yahoo was just a baby. We've evolved so much so fast. And you brought up the metaverse. That's going to be happening next. It seems like by the time we're caught up and up to speed on what to do and not do with social media, there's a new platform and a new genre of social media that we're going to have to learn on. So thank goodness for people like you that are taking the time to be read up on the laws and study up on case law and advise us people on how to stay out of trouble. So thank you so much for doing that.
Absolutely. And on that note, I mean, like I tell people when I do these trainings, I'm using a lot of cases, and it's all about Facebook, and everybody's like, nobody's on Facebook anymore except my mom. Well, that's, the law takes a while to catch up. So by the time they're doing the Instagram or Twitter cases, we're not going to be doing that anymore. It's going to be, so far back. So sometimes, when you ask certain questions like, well, can we do this on this platform or that? It's a little bit of here's the law and a little bit of let's guess what they're going to go to, because there's no cases on that yet because the law is so far behind. So, keeps me in a job because it's always changing.
All right. Well, we're certainly glad that people like you are out there looking out for people like us. So, well, yeah, I think that pretty much we've scratched the surface when it comes to legalities and social media. But we'd love to have you back one day if you're willing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And maybe next time I'll let you use your censor button. I wasn't sure if you had one, so I didn't want to, go out on a limb there.
I was it's a proverbial button. It doesn't exist, but no, we love you being as candid as you can. And I'm sure our commuting parents who are dropping their kids off to school right now appreciate this version. So
Yeah.
we'll just go with that.
Well, see, and also I had a 6-year-old here for part of the time with,
Yes.
so you got to really watch it.
Know your
Absolutely.
audience. Yeah.
Well, speaking of audience, we want to thank you guys for listening. We know you have your choice to listen to anybody during your commutes, in your office, and in your homes, and we just thank you for bringing us in. So on that note, we want to thank our guest, Brandi Harper of Castillo and Harper. If you have any questions regarding social media or POA business or anything like that, police related, give them a call. They're on social media. I think your page is Castillo Harper.
Yeah, so our firm page is Castillo Harper, and then my page is Brandi from Castillo Harper. So,
all right. And if you need to find them, just go to Kristen's page or my page, and you can see that we follow them. Just put in Brandi Harper or Casey Castillo or Castillo and Harper, and they'll pop right up. Well, thank you guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the 911 Strong podcast.